Hello and welcome to our online worship in this time of continuing lockdown. My name is Alex Bradley and I'm a Unitarian minister and I serve a congregation called Brook Street Chapel, a liberal Christian and Unitarian congregation in Knutsford in Cheshire. Maybe that you have a firm faith, or perhaps you are a spiritual seeker, or perhaps you are not quite sure what you believe, but you are equally and warmly welcome to our worship. And we hope that in due course, when the pandemic has run its course, that we will be able to welcome you in person to our ancient and lovely chapel building here in Knutsford. The theme of our worship this Sunday is practicing gratitude as a spiritual exercise. There is a lovely saying in the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. Light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for eyes to behold the sun. And Khalil Gibran wrote in his book, The Prophet, "You pray in your distress and in your need. Would that you might pray also in the fullness of your joy and the days of your abundance." And the 19th century man of letters, Ralph Waldo Emerson, wrote this: "Cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you, and to give thanks continuously. And because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude." And a prayer. Eternal God, the Spirit of light, love, and peace, we express our thanks for this opportunity for prayer and reflection, remembering that so many people are persecuted for seeking to worship in the way they choose. We are glad of this opportunity to express our needs, our hopes and fears, and our gratitude for all the blessings that life has given us. We give you thanks for this worship, which links us through invisible bonds of loving kindness to one another. We are mindful of our great debt of appreciation for the writings of the scriptures and other holy works, the insights of novelists, dramatists, and poets, and the gifts of knowledge of our world brought to us by scientists and philosophers. Grant us, O God, open hearts and receptive minds, that we may know the joy that comes from the treasury of knowledge in this world, and grant us too the capacity and will to use it and act upon it to make this world a better place. Amen. Our first reading is a reading from the Gospel of Luke in the New Testament, from chapter 17. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing through Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered the village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices and said, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now this man was a Samaritan. Then Jesus said, "Were not 10 people cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God, except this Samaritan?" And he said to him, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." And a reading from an unknown writer. Look for the good things today, the sunshine and the colours, gardens and birds, children's merry faces, pretty things, whatever is pleasing. Listen for the good things today, laughter and singing, the kind things friends and neighbours say. Think good things today, about whatever there is in your life for which to be thankful, for any friends you may have, for the ills you don't suffer from, for the little everyday joys you'd miss so much if they were not present, for talking and walking. And as you think about the truly worthwhile things which enrich and bless your life, be grateful for them. Gratitude as a spiritual practice. The mystical writer from the Middle Ages, Meister Eckhart, wrote, "If the only prayer you ever say in your whole life is thank you, that would be enough." When I wake up in the morning, I try, depending on how well I have slept or not slept, and how sluggish I feel, I try to say to myself those words with which we began these devotions. Light is sweet, and a pleasant thing it is for eyes to behold the sun. Even if the day has been one that I have not been looking forward to, or if I can hear pouring rain outside, I try to say these words to myself as a kind of mantra, because in my more enlightened moments, I remember that I have been given this gift of another day, that I am actually alive, that this is a new day, another addition to my lifespan, another chance to be with my wife, an opportunity to meet friends and strangers, although sadly not during the present COVID crisis, a day to relish once more the taste of food, to value my work and enjoy reading when I get the time. In short, I try to remind myself that I should count myself happy, and I do, and I should also give thanks, which I usually do as well, although perhaps not as often as I should do. A few years ago, my wife and I acquired little number clickers, and the idea was to click every time something good was said or happened, something good in your life, something you noticed perhaps. And if you stuck to the idea and clicked that clicker each time, at the end of the day, there were often a very large number of things which were positive and for which to give thanks. There is another verse in the Bible, in all things give thanks. But the verse, as many have pointed out, does not say we should give thanks for everything, but in everything. Of course, we don't want to give thanks for illness or redundancy, still less COVID. But even in the midst of things such as these, for which we certainly don't want to give thanks, we can still give thanks in everything. I'd like to add that instead of saying even in the midst of such things, we should have said especially during such difficult times. Now, this is not advice that perhaps any of us would want to say to anyone going through a difficult or distressing time, on a personal level at least, because they might see it as irrelevant at best or even uncaring at worst. Only each one of us, only each person can discover this truth for him or herself. Only each person can work out for him or herself just how they can cope with situations in which they find themselves. However, I think that this practice of gratitude can be effective as a spiritual remedy and a spiritual exercise. Why do I say this? I have known people, and I'm sure most of you listening to this have known people who have had what amounts on it to lives of heartache and tragedy, pain and loss, sadness and setbacks. And yet, the striking thing for me in such encounters has been the lack of self-pity and the concern for others that they so often show. Only today, ringing two different people, each of them said, despite their own difficulties, there's people a lot worse off than we are. Perhaps you have known people who have had a great loss, who are seriously ill, or whose loved ones are seriously ill. And when one speaks to them or visits them, practically their first words are to ask how you are. This has happened to me on numerous occasions, and I reply something along the lines of, I'm fine, thank you for asking, but it's you I'm concerned about just now. How are you? They may talk about their pain or sadness or distress, but nevertheless, such people manage to put it into a wider context. I remember visiting one couple, a husband and wife, who had been unable to attend my congregation in years in person. But I can still picture sitting with that couple in their front room, drinking a cup of coffee with them, and one of them would say several times over the years, there's a lot more people worse off than us. I can think of other people too who, as the old saying has it, had hardly two halfpennies to rub together, and yet they radiated happiness. I left their company feeling uplifted and enriched. And on the other side of the coin, I can remember visiting one or two houses where there was clearly no shortage of money, but an atmosphere of unhappiness and discontent. The story of the 10 lepers, those people suffering from a terrible skin disease, is one of the famous stories of literature, not simply because it comes from the New Testament in the Bible, but because it seems to sum up well how we human beings often fail to give thanks. And others, who one might not have expected to show gratitude, surprise and please us by their spiritual positivity. In Jesus' own time, a Samaritan would have been regarded as a spiritual outcast by most Jewish people. Yet, in the story, he is the one who shows the gratitude. He is the one who makes a point of coming back to say thank you. And I interpret this not simply as good manners, although it certainly is that, but first and foremost, it is a spiritual action. And the reaction of Jesus to this man indicates the importance that he attaches to his action. All the people in the story suffered from an illness as frightening in its time as the coronavirus is to us in our own time. Although, unlike them, we have the prospect of the rollout of vaccines to protect us. Yet, how often do we say thank you both on our lips and in our hearts to the men and women who help us? I had to go to our local chemist to collect a prescription a few days ago, and it was ready within a couple of hours of speaking on the phone to the doctor. I was very glad of such speedy service, as I was in some considerable discomfort. And I thanked the pharmacist for getting it ready so quickly for me, and her face lit up in a smile, as far as I could tell from the mask, underneath the mask. And I have never forgotten the smile on the face of the taxi driver in North Africa, where local people often have to use either English or French to tourists who do not know Arabic. When I used the Arabic word for thank you, shukran, when getting out of his taxi, in his turn, he warmly wished me a blessing. Gratitude is never a solitary process. Gratitude helps to transform, even if for only a short time, both the person who expresses gratitude and he or she who receives it. Both are touched by something greater than themselves, and they are opened up to the heart of all that is, the universal spirit of life and love. Even when, by force of circumstances, we have to express our gratitude alone, at home or in a study, in our hearts and minds. Although the person to whom we are grateful cannot hear us at that moment, nevertheless, I believe that we open ourselves up to the universal love and power of life, and that this both enriches, empowers, and enables us to live life more fully and to live in harmony with all that is. May ours be a faith that gives thanks, and a faith that turns faithfulness into action. Amen. And as our devotions come to their conclusion, may we be thankful for those who journeyed before us. And may we set our feet on the path to the future with a resolve to care for one another and a renewed determination to care for this world which we have been given. May the God who is love, truth, and beauty be with us and guide us, and may our ways be paths of compassion, justice, and peace. Amen.